I want to be very clear about what C-22 is not. It is not about the surveillance of honest, hardworking Canadians going on about their daily lives. It is, however, about keeping Canadians safe in the online space.
Keeping Canadians safe. You know what they say when you are ready to trade safety for security, or should I say your freedoms for security? You deserve neither. And this is exactly what we're going to be talking about today, because at 7:15 we're joined by John Carpay, president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, to speak about the new Liberal Bill C-22. My name is Nico Lagan, and I'm too conservative for the Conservatives. My co-host Rob Ambrose, not woken up for the Liberals. We are the political orphans. I'm happy to say that I finally got our accounts back. They were hacked over the weekend. I must be doing something right. So they were hacked, got them back this morning. So happy to be back on the YouTube.
Nice.
Quick update. I wanted to start there because we've been talking about Bill C-9 ever since it was tabled back in September last year. We've literally been speaking about this for almost 7 months now. And we are looking at a quick update. Yesterday, the House of Commons voted 188 in favor against 144 against to move Bill C-9 forward to third reading and final vote, which chances are this will be done tomorrow. That is Wednesday. So by the end of the day tomorrow, chances are that Bill C-9 will have been passed through the House of Commons and will be making its way to the Senate. Tomorrow, worst case scenario, Thursday, but by the end of the week, basically, Bill C-9 is going to be a reality.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's going to pass.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, we've been saying this for as soon as the bloc said it's going to happen, it's going to happen. Like, what did I just say? 188 over 144. So they're not even close. Not even close of beating this bill. And
no, definitely not.
No, it's not close. As you'll see, man, Bill C-9 is bad. It's really bad. But so is Bill C-22, man.
Yeah, what is this one? What is this one?
Oh, well, you'll see, man. We will be talking about it in just a few minutes with John. It is insane, man. It is absolutely freaking insane. That bill is very scary. The fact that Bill C-9 is a reality, that Bill C-22 is on its way back. It's on its way. Man, let's wait until we have John, because you know, sometimes I read the bill and I'm like, I'm not even out of the first page of the summary. I was an hour and a half in research. I'm like, okay, what do they mean there? What do they mean there? So I'm like, it's gonna be this one's gonna be an interesting one, man.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what John has to say about it, and we'll see. I'll probably have to end up doing a deep dive on it myself, but yeah, no, it should be good. It should be good.
Before we get into that, though, I wanted to bring up something, because that's another thing I talk about all the time. Free speech is a big thing, and I don't know if you remember this, but I think it was last month or March. It might have even been this month. It's hard to keep track of all the stuff that happens with very much lack of sleep on my side. But remember how Mark Carney, I believe he was in Asia. He might have been in Japan when he said that. But he said that we should consider having a conversation, or we need to have a conversation on banning social media for children and teens below the age of 16. Remember, he talked about this over the past few weeks. So there's a couple of articles that came out, and the Toronto Star is one of the main ones that's talking about this, but they're saying that the Liberals are to debate age restrictions on social media, AI chatbot. So they are having a caucus they're having their convention, the Liberal convention taking place in Montreal from April 9th to 11th. And one of the things that they want to talk about is age restriction on social media accounts and
Mm.
AI chatbot. That's one of the topics. So Mark Carney, he's telling you what he's going to do. He's not lying about it. He is actually saying it. And basically, here is where it gets very, very interesting. One resolution from Quebec, of course, from Quebec. Why is it always coming from Quebec? Calls for anyone under the age of 16 to be banned from accessing all AI chatbots and other potentially harmful form of AI interactions, such as ChatGPT. These technologies have been shown to limit desire for interaction with peers, push some young people into sexual conversation, and have even recommended suicide to vulnerable youth, states the resolution, which is contained in a package published by the Liberal Party's website. Now, how ironic is this? So they're saying that it can be harmful to children, yet porn is available literally everywhere. These
Mhm.
technologies have shown to limit desire for interaction in peers. You mean that being 2 to 3 years locked down, not being able to go to school, that did not cause that problem either during COVID? They're saying that our youth is vulnerable. Sure, it's always about the children, right? How dare you not want to protect the children? But I love how they're saying that they shouldn't have interactions with AI because it limits the desire for interaction with peers. Have you not seen the youth? They don't want to deal with one another. They don't. And
Yeah,
that's because of the chatbots? Give me a
I mean,
fucking break.
I don't think kids should be using AI. That seems pretty obvious to me, but that should be up to the parents to decide. Um, my kid certainly wouldn't be using AI if he was under 16. And frankly, my kids probably wouldn't be on social media either if they were under 16. But parents can make those decisions for themselves.
100%. And you know what? I will agree with one thing, that there are things that needs to be fixed when it comes to AI, but it is not something that should be banned. Now,
No, no, definitely not.
should you put a different type of restrictions when it comes to teens, as in certain block of the AI, like certain part of the AI is not available? Sure, I could hear the debate. I'm not interested in restricting anything. I believe in 100% free speech, not portions of free speech. But at the same time, there are part of AI that is simply not needed. Like the sexualization of AI, definitely not needed.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's enough porn
It,
out there to destroy these generations. Like
oh, for
generations like
sure,
us that started in the 90s have
sure.
been destroyed by porn. There was a guy, I think he was a pastor. I was watching this podcast and he comes up and he says, "You know, guys, do you realize that a young man today, give him the age of 15,
Yep.
will have seen more vaginas and breasts than a man 50, 100 years ago would have seen in his lifetime."
Oh, for sure.
Just through
Absolutely.
one
That's
night,
wild, man.
few
Yeah.
hours, get that, and you can endly, you know, the joke. Do you remember? You're old enough to remember that. There was a parody. I can't show it on the show because I tried and it got my episode banned. But there was a parody of an old game. I can't remember, World of Warcraft. And they were all going around. The internet is for porn. The internet is for porn. And back in the days, it was true. It was something like 33 to 50% of the internet
All of it was
back in the 90s to the early 2000s was porn sites.
yeah, oh, yeah.
It
Yeah,
was insane.
absolutely. Absolutely it was.
So so there's
um
something to be said, but I agree with you. Like I've said many times, it comes down to the parent. I don't want to limit this shit because when's the other limit? Oh, well, you're 25. But you
well,
know
yeah,
what? The
exactly.
other, but here's the part I thought was funny is that it was saying that in some cases AI has recommended suicide. It was that through maid or was that
Yeah.
just at home? Like, give
Yeah.
me a
We only
break.
want our doctors recommending suicide. Yeah, that's true, right?
I, I shouldn't be
That
laughing at that. That's not
yeah,
funny.
no, that's wild. But there's lots of AI is also a useful tool. There's
For
reasons why
research.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot of scenarios where you want to use it. And it should be easy enough just to to keep your kids off, not interacting with AI on a regular basis. Just pay attention to what your kids are doing. It's really not rocket science.
How dare you? How dare you
How
put
dare you?
the emphasis on the parents and not let them blame the government for every single problem we face every day? How
Yeah,
dare you?
exactly right.
I need to have this. I need to have this. How do you call it? This meme available where it's just Greta Thunberg. How dare you?
How dare you?
How
I saw
dare
her.
you?
What's her newest cause? It's not even Palestine now. It's Cuba. She's out leading marches for the, pro Cuba. She's basically just a hate monger.
A
Just anything.
grifter.
Yeah, a grifter. Exactly, a grifting hate monger.
All I'm gonna say is if she goes to Cuba, can you bring me back? I have very specific cigars that only come from Cuba.
Yeah, the
They're
Cohibas.
stupid expensive.
Yeah.
They're the highest part of the Cohibas, and they're insane. They
yeah?
are worth
Does it make a big
1,500
difference?
to that one. Yes, I'm a big fan of cigars. Right, I will pay
Okay.
the price for good cigars, and those ones in Canada, where we're allowed to have Cubans, you're looking at 1,500 to $2,000 a box
That's
of
crazy.
25. They were, when I was smoking them, man, I brought 4 boxes back. When I went to Cuba.
How much were they in Cuba?
I paid about $1,000 for 4 boxes.
Okay.
Less than $1,000 for 4 boxes, and we gave the guy 2 old cell phones, like Samsung 7, S7, because back then they don't have those cell phones. So my buddy gave me one of his old cell phones. I brought one of my cell phones, and we gave him, I believe, like $600-700. But literally, the cigars go for $75 US a cigar, and that was
per cigar.
per cigar, brother.
That's crazy.
Per cigar.
That is crazy. I don't know. I'm not a cigar smoker. Like, is it really worth that? Like, what makes it good? What makes it so good? You don't even inhale that shit.
It's just the taste, man. It's the experience.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Is it worth it? It's debatable.
Yeah.
Everybody can debate, but I don't really drink. I don't smoke anything else. I eat pretty damn clean all the time, so that's one of my guilty pleasures.
Yeah.
On that note, before we get to John, because I just saw he is in the back, and I know he's ready to go. He's always ready to go.
Mm-hmm.
We definitely need to speak about our sponsors. So this episode of the Political Orphans is brought to you by Miss Cleo's Pet Treats, 100% natural, healthy dog treat with no preservatives, additives, or fillers, made by hand right here in Canada. Not only are the treats handmade, the treats handmade, but they are made from meat locally sourced from farms in Manitoba. So none of that nasty Chinese meat. You know that your dog deserves better. So go to Cleo's cookiesandtreats.ca and use the discount code Political Orphans to get 20% off your entire purchase. On that note, Mr. John Carpay, can you hear us? Thumbs up. Ready to go? Yeah. We are joined by the president of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms, John Carpay, to speak about Bill C-22, an act respecting lawful access. John Carpay, good day. Bonjour.
Hey, John. Great to see you, sir.
Hey, good to see both of you, gentlemen. Glad to be with your viewers and listeners. And we've got the good news is Bill C-22 is less bad than Bill C-2. And this proves or supports, in my view, what I'm always saying: people need to contact their members of parliament. There is such an outcry against Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act, which should have been called the Strong Surveillance Act. So many Canadians contacted their MPs that the government actually listened, and they seem to be listening to people like Michael Geist, a prof at the University of Ottawa, and there's another guy has written a lot about this, Robert Diab. I think he's a lawyer. I don't know too much about him. And Robert Diab said he made 5 He said, my last blog post on this topic back in December was titled 5 Ways to Fix Bill C-2. I'm happy to see that C-22 adopts all 5 of my recommendations, but unfortunately not entirely. So the good news is when there's enough pressure, right? When a politician says that he's seen the light, it's because he felt the heat. When there's enough people speaking out saying this bill is a piece of garbage, we hate it, you have to withdraw it, then if there's enough people saying that, the government say, okay, what should we change? And they make changes. So the good news is C-22 is less bad than Bill C-2. That's the good news. The bad news is it still leaves a lot to be desired. It has the Supporting Authorized Access to Information Act, which requires the Bell and Rogers and other large companies, they have to keep data on file for a year. And the police standard for getting a warrant, it's good they still have to get a warrant, but it's gone from probable grounds down to reasonable suspicion. So it's easier to get a warrant on reasonable suspicions, a lower standard, as opposed to probable grounds that there's a crime being committed.
So let's talk about this, because this is definitely some of the 2 points I wanted to talk about, although there's a third one I wonder if you know about, if you're aware about, because it's being discussed, but you kind of need to come from my background to really understand like the telecommunication world, to understand the door that it opens, because it's not, I had to research, I saw the doors that it opened, but it's when I started researching as to what else has Canada done internationally, agreed to do internationally in the past that can, this bill is very, very dangerous for the reasons that you mentioned, the power that Gary, I call him a poo because I just refuse to call him by his name. He's so disgusting as a minister. I absolutely dislike everything that
Ananda Sangari. Sangari.
He's going after my free speech and my guns on the same at the same time.
Did you know that Ananda means spiritual bliss?
Yeah.
I was told that because I once upon a time I lived in Ottawa, and I had a roommate, East Indian guy, and he's Ananda was his middle name, and he said it meant spiritual bliss. So remember, we have Minister Ananda Sangari, spiritual bliss Sangari. I don't know what Sangari means.
It's a joke. It's not real. It's probably gotcha. But let's go back to what you were talking about, because you identified, I think those are the 2 or 3 biggest issues that we're seeing right now. So you mentioned that it's not as bad as Bill C-2, because if you read Bill C-22 and you read Bill C-2, you start to understand that there are some comparatives. Like Bill C-2 became Bill C-12. There's stuff that they didn't put in Bill C-12 because they want to pass it. Now they're putting it into Bill C-22. Some of those portions, it's been reframed. It doesn't sound the same. But if you start looking, you start seeing that there are connections between Bill C-8, Bill C-2, Bill C-22. There's connection to... We'll see what happens to Bill C-63, but I got a feeling that there are going to be some connections there. So go back to what you were talking about, because I believe what you were referring to is what most people are calling the mass surveillance of innocent Canadian, is basically how it's being referred right now. And it's mostly under the core provider definition, right? What they expect our government to do to core providers, what they call service provider, as you mentioned, the Bells, the Rogers, the Telus, the Videotron here in Quebec, all the major players that offers telecommunication services. So do you want to explain to us what actually is the problem with that section? And for the people that are interested, it's on page 36 that it starts, and it goes all the way to like page 45. It's almost 10 pages long.
John, just before you answer that, can you maybe just give us a very brief overview of Bill C-22 for some of our audience members?
That's what it is. That's what gotcha. the three portion we're going to talk about is the main importance of Bill, but this part is the most recognizable part of Bill C2.
Okay.
So if you want to go through what you found, and I'll add to it probably because I've done a lot of research too, but go ahead, John, if you want to say what the problems are here.
Well, let me back up a little bit and do a legal, cultural, historical. What are the principles here that are at stake, right? Because that's the lens through which we should be looking at the legislation. So traditionally, we have a tradition of governments respecting our privacy. So the government cannot go into your, let's say 50 years ago, pre-internet, the government can't just go into your home and set up a little camera or a recording device because you have a right to privacy. And that was part of our culture. You know, pre-charter, we didn't have all these rights spelled out, but there's this understanding that everybody accepted, the police accepted it. It was part of our culture. The politicians understood it, the courts, the judges, the lawyers, everybody understood it. We have a right to privacy. We have a right to not be under state surveillance. Now, at the same time, sometimes police need special powers. If John or Rob or Nico is, running a child prostitution ring or producing child pornography, or you're part of a terrorist gang and you're plotting to blow up the parliament buildings, okay? So if they have reasonable and probable grounds to suspect somebody has committed a crime or is in the process, or strong grounds to believe they will commit a crime, they have to go to court and they get a warrant. And so there can be police surveillance, and they could install a camera in your home. Maybe you're on holidays and they break in there and they set up cameras and they leave again, you know, like the Stasi did in East Germany and so many regimes. And that's okay. So we have a balance of, on the starting point is we all have a right to privacy. The government has no right to be gathering information about me. That's the starting point. Then we also have an allowance for law enforcement where you have to go to court to get a warrant. The warrant allows you to get information on one person or maybe two or three people that are part of a gang. It's not a justification to get information about everybody, right? That's the whole point, is that we can violate the privacy rights for one individual or for a group of individuals who are a criminal gang, a criminal organization doing child pornography, child prostitution, terrorism, what have you, fraud, theft. So this is the kind of the starting point. Okay. So now with that in place, when I look at a bill, I said, does this allow the government to get information about everybody, including the 99.99% of people who are not committing a crime, who are not suspected of committing a crime? That's the lens. So when you look at it through that lens, we have problems with this because it makes it very easy for government to get information on the 99.99% of Canadians who are not committing any crimes. That's what I would advocate for as a principle. If you want to look at the legislation government's coming up with, is the question is, will this law give the government information about the 99.99% of Canadians who are not criminals?
Okay.
That's very fair, because
that's a
that
great
part you're talking about,
litmus test. Yeah.
But it's bang on, because if you look, for the people that are interested in looking at the bill itself, if you go to page 38, or if you're looking at a PDF, it's the page 46 under core providers obligations. I believe that this is the part that you are referring to, where the governor in council may make regulations respecting the obligations of core providers, including regulation respecting the development, implementation, assessment, testing, and maintenance of operational and technical capabilities, including capabilities related to extracting and organizing information that is authorized to be accessed, and providing access to such information to authorized persons. And this goes the installation, use, operation, management, assessment, testing, maintenance of any device, equipment, or other things that may enable an authorized person to access information. Notice to be given by the minister or other persons, including with respect to any capabilities referred to into paragraph A, any device, equipment, other things referred in this paragraph. And where it's problematic, and I don't know if you saw into this, John, but the retention of categories of metadata, including transmission data as defined in section 487.011 of the criminal code. That metadata is extremely dangerous if the average person does not know what that is. So basically, it's stipulating that the government has the power to force core providers, as I said, those are the telecommunication providers in Canada, the Bell, the Telus, the Rogers, the Videotron of this world, to install equipment that would be able to basically what we call in the world, in the IT world, sniff through every single piece of information that is going through their network, similar to what the NSA has been doing since the 2001 attacks on the buildings in New York. The Patriot Act, what they've been doing since the Patriot Act, they're basically saying that they want to implement that same type of technology to be available to them.
Is that how you read that, John? Or are there safeguards on that? Or what's going on there?
These are the building blocks where, and Bill C-8 ties in with that as well, that it gives power to the cabinet to pick the companies. And they get to decide who. There are not very clear criteria. So they can just name any company they want. And they say, you're going to do this and this and this. You're going to reorganize your software. C-8 gives the federal cabinet extensive control over an unknown number of companies, that the list can be as long as they want to make it, to get everything set up. The scary thing about the C-8 and now the C-22 is that if they are passed into law in their current form, nobody will notice the day after. There won't be any changes, right? It's insidious. If there's a bill where there's an immediate impact, if Parliament passes a bill that says anybody that's wearing a yellow T-shirt is going to get arrested and thrown in prison and get your head chopped off, well, there'd be protests. People say, what is this? We got this law that it's a crime to wear a yellow T-shirt and you're going to be executed, something like that, right? People are going to notice and they're going to speak up and they're going to be upset. But here, C-22 and C-8, the day after they're proclaimed in force, nothing will happen. But the weeks and the months and the years after, they will start using this and they'll say, well, you're an electronic service provider. We want you to tell us about, how is your software set up and how are you maintaining your records? Tell us that. And then we're going to tell you how to change your software to set it up really nicely so that in the future, if we want to get all this data on all Canadians, then we can just get it quickly and easily. So it's a departure from that principle that law enforcement should, and I support law enforcement prosecuting, fighting crime, right? I support that 100%. And the way to do that is you give the law enforcement, they have to go to court to get a warrant, to get information about an individual or individuals, plural, and it's limited to that. But the law enforcement does not get this broad power to read everybody's emails and to go to, Telus, Rogers, Bell, Videotron, and just say, give us all of this data on all Canadians. Yeah. That's the scary part.
It's basically the data is going to be available for them to give me the data and I will decide what to do with it later. If I need a warrant,
trust me, because I'm the government, and I would never. I'm the government. I'm good. I would never harm your rights or freedoms. I would never freeze your bank account. I would never unleash violence on peaceful protesters. I would never have millions of cell phones that were listened to during the lockdowns. It's just like, this is the scary part. The worst thing is, okay, if somebody is ignorant of history, you can persuade them of anything. And we've been gradually removing history from the school curriculum for the last 50 years. The more recent graduates, unless they're studying history on purpose, they're taking it as an elective or they're studying at university. But you've got all these people don't have a clue. They don't know that in the 20th century, more people were murdered by their own government in political genocides than the number of soldiers killed in the battlefield. They don't know that. All they think of, oh, government's good, government's good, government's good. Well, yes, government can be good, but there's a dark side to it. It's a double-edged sword, and people don't understand that. You know, they only understand the good things the government can do, and government can do good things. That's all they understand. And it's like, yeah, you know, let the government have all this data because they'll never hurt us.
And it's funny, John, because what you said, it's not just in the 20th century when it comes to the army. In the 20th century, let's be honest, communism has killed more people. So their government using communism have killed more citizens than all war combined have killed of men. This is the reality. Throughout history, the 20th century's communist movement has killed more people than every single war prior to now. It's insane. It's absolutely insane when you look at the numbers.
Yeah. Well, I forget who it was that said, but one, the death of one man is a tragedy.
I think
the death of 4 or 5 million is a statistic. And it seems something weird about human nature, but yeah, we seem to be, you know, more concerned with the murder of one person, which is good. We should be concerned about that. But the statistics are so frightening. Mao Zedong in China, Stalin in the Soviet Union, Hitler in Germany and Nazi-occupied Europe, Pol Pot in Cambodia, you know, and even somebody like Castro in Cuba. Yeah. Not a mass genocide, but how many thousands of people have been murdered by the communist regime in Cuba in the last 50 plus years?
Sure. Yeah. It's funny. It was actually Stalin that said that quote, I believe, the statistic one. But it is something about the human psyche. When a crime gets so big, we almost can't comprehend it, and we just file it under, you know, the statistics instead of thinking of that's 1 million actual lives, right? 1 million families torn apart.
It's too big to understand. It's such a great number that you cannot comprehend what it actually means.
Yeah, we can all understand four murders, right?
Yeah,
but 1 million murders, it's hard to grasp.
One of the things too that's worth mentioning is in that portion of the bill C-22, before we get to the other portion you were talking about, is that one of the problems is that it opens what we call backdoors. Because remember when we had you on the show to do a deep dive on Bill C-8, that's something I had identified as someone that comes from the telecommunication world. They were asking core providers, the internet providers, for access to their data center. And I don't know if you remember, but that's what I said. I'm like, they're not asking for any reasons. I remember I used to deal with them. The RCMP has called our office many times to get, hey, we suspect this guy at this IP address is trafficking child pornography. Can you, like, but there was a process there was a massive process between them and us. We needed to release that information to them because they didn't have access to our network. But now through Bill C-8, the government has started asking access to their data centers. The only reason they would want to do that is either to install equipment that can interfere, kind of, we call it middleman, right? You install equipment that is in between two pieces of software or hardware that handles a lot of traffic so that you can sniff it, you can look at what's going through it, or they want to be able to have access to it no matter when they need it in order to do something, whatever that might be in the future. But I had told you this was the opening door to installing AI everywhere. And what do you think is the best sniffer out there now is AI. It's so powerful that it can sniff through. Once you have that traffic, sending an AI agent on that traffic and say, Nico Lagan, enter, give me all the information and make sense of it, organize it in a way that a human being could understand it, enter.
Oh yeah,
it's going to do it for you.
That's what it's going to be used for sure.
But it opens a massive backdoor too, right? Like security breaches. I just got hacked over the weekend. My YouTube got hacked and I lost it for a few days. YouTube was able to bring it back. But imagine if people are able to do that to just me, because I probably pissed them off. So they hacked me. But imagine what they're going to do when all that information that is saved, just like the NSA, is accessible online. what do you think they're going to do? Hackers throughout the world are going to try to get access to it because they're backdoors. And one thing I know from dealing with the government for almost 20 years on the technology side, they're fucking incompetent. Those guys do not know how to build anything properly. So those backdoors are going to be there and they're going to be used.
Did you find in your experience that if the police came knocking at your company's door saying that we have you have probable grounds that let's say, Mark Tremblay, whatever, is trafficking child pornography, I'm assuming your company would be keen to help the police because they're only asking for one name. They're not saying, tell us all about your every customer and your customers' habits and whereabouts and what they like to see, right? But if they're asking about one person, I'm assuming that most companies would want to comply. And further, if they didn't, it wouldn't be hard to get a court order to say to the company, you shall turn over information about Mark Tremblay to the police.
Yes.
But
actually, there's a comment here that came in a few minutes ago, John, that kind of is related to what you're talking about here now. I'll bring it up and just run it by you. Give me your thoughts on it. Claire says, I ran an internet company from 1997 to 2004. If the police showed up asking for info on our clients, well, they weren't. They were told to come get one when they had it. They rarely came back, though. And, I wonder, I'd be very curious to know how common that's the case, right? Because it makes you wonder, if it was really important, you'd think they would come back, right? How much of this is just a fishing expedition?
What was your experience, Nico, with when police would come to the company that you worked for and they wanted individual like information about one person? Was your company
we were pretty
hard to get
cooperative, but there was only one manager because it's not like those requests happened 100 times a day, right? They were very rare. And when they did happen, they had to be confidential because that guy was not proven guilty. And in Canada, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. So there was one single manager that handled those requests because, again, they were rare. They had to be done under secrecy. It's not like they walked in our network operations center, just like you see in the movies. There's screens everywhere and a bunch of nerds just looking at traffic, at what's happening. Those things really exist. They're not just in movies. But they didn't show up there. They had a meeting with a very specific guy. They went in a place where we couldn't hear what they had to say because they're talking about something, a real person's lives here. But never would we have considered installing equipment or setting up our network in a way where our traffic could be sniffed by the government. On the contrary, this is something we made very sure that did not happen, because if the government can listen, that means anybody can listen. It's a massive backdoor that you're opening up to the internet. And funny enough, I remember when Cisco, one of the biggest supplier of telecommunication equipment in the world, if not the biggest one, installed a Chinese firewall that's been used by the Communist Party to block traffic. Because the government is preventing Chinese are not able to access the internet per se, right? They're able to access certain part of the internet, but it is prevented by a massive amount of firewalls that prevent the traffic from going out, and only approved traffic can go out to specific locations. I remember when this was a big deal and Cisco was made a deal with China in order to install this. And it was an outrage. Us here in the West, we're like, what the hell is going on? Government should never have that power. We're talking 20 years ago. Now our government is trying to pass bills to duplicate what the Chinese have done, giving them the exact same power, and we need to trust them that they're not going to use it? Really? Really? Sure, cool story. History proves that it's not quite that simple.
When power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? So the more, which is why my daily work is to advocate for limited government, because if the government has that power where they know everything about you, then they can take everything from you. And it's
John,
just
I have nothing to hide.
Yeah.
I have nothing to hide, John. Come on. John, I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't have anything to hide. What are you talking about?
So,
Well, but then,
go ahead.
would that person be okay with having, having cameras installed in every room in their house and let everybody see? I suppose there's some people that maybe they wouldn't mind, but to me, it just
called
seems
OnlyFans.
kind of twisted.
It's called OnlyFans, John. Just so you know, I'm just saying.
So, as far as Bill C-22 goes, does it do away with the requirements for warrants, or are those things still required, or what? How's that?
It lowers the standard. It makes it easier to get a warrant. It goes from the police need to demonstrate before the court that they have probable grounds to believe that a crime has been committed or is being committed, will be committed, down to a reasonable suspicion. Now, it's not just a mere suspicion. It has to be a reasonable suspicion. Okay, so, it could be worse, but reasonable suspicion is a lower standard, and it makes it easier to get a warrant.
The end result is, that's a sneaky way to do it, right? Because even the normies who aren't paying attention to this kind of stuff, they understand that police should still have a warrant to go through your shit. But this way, you can tell them, "Oh no, we have a warrant." You don't do away with the need to get a warrant. You just dilute the strength of the warrant. You just make it much easier to get a warrant. You still get to tell the normies, "Oh no, we've got a warrant." The fact is, it's not really the same protection. It's like a paper warrant, right? A paper shield.
It's less protection. Yeah.
And not only that, but even you can look at page 1, like summary part 1, section A. Specify certain circumstances in which peace officers and public officers may obtain evidence, including subscriber information, in exigent circumstances. They never defined what exigent circumstances is throughout the bill. This is page 1. Summary. Say summary, page 1, section A. I'm like, what? This is how we're starting? Is to say that evidence only needs to be in exigent circumstances? What the hell does that even mean? It's not even defined throughout the bill. And a question that I had for you, John, before you answer this, they do say multiple times, because warrant is mentioned something like 80 times, a bit over 80 times in the bill. And one of the things that they keep on saying is a peace officer or public officer can either obtain a warrant, serve a warrant. What is the definition of a public officer in Canada? Is it a blue-haired bureaucrat? Like, what is the definition of a public officer?
I haven't looked through the definition section, but is it defined? I know the Bill C-2 extended authority to thousands and thousands of different government officials. It broadened it from not just police and CSIS, right, but any number of government officials would be have the right to start demanding information, demanding subscriber information, inspection, so on and so forth. We have to be careful there as well. I think that there are, when it comes to, going into somebody's house or demanding information, I think that should be limited to police and maybe other very narrow classes of people. So if it's not specified, then I don't know what a public officer is. It's the more vague, the worse it is, right? Like in Bill C-8, threats to cybersecurity. That could be, I don't know if they're going to put in an amendment to say that, the expression of opinion on the internet will never be deemed to be a threat to cybersecurity. If they put that in there, that would be reassuring. It would still be a bad bill for other reasons, but that would be an improvement. But otherwise, maybe the three of us are spreading disinformation, so we are a threat to cybersecurity, so the government can then kick the three of us off the internet, right? Which is what Bill C-8, the cyber...
I was just going to say, sorry to cut you off, that's exactly what Bill C-8 gives the power to Mélanie Joly, of all people, as a minister to be able to kick anybody off the internet that she deems fit. And
A
you know
threat.
one of the definition of public officer, as per Google, one of the definitions: specialized staff, employees in the public service responsible for storing court exhibit, technician working at forensic lab, and armorers at police academies. That is how vague, because the definition highlights a bunch of different points, but that is one of the points. How a police armorer? Like,
That is, yeah,
how
that's super
how
specific.
vague. Exactly, and that's the point I think you're trying to make. But one of the things I wanted you to touch on, because there's two other portions of Bill C-22 that were massive problems. Obviously, asking for telecommunication service providers to not only give them access to their equipment, as in Bill C-8, but now forcing them to redo their network in a way that they install equipment that is capable of sniffing all the information that can go through it and keep it for a year in case the government needs it. There's also something that they called it ministerial orders, where the minister of public safety wants to have the right to not only force public service providers of doing specific things, but to put a gag order on them not to reveal what he's done, similar to what Bill C-8 gave to Mélanie Joly's ministry, as in, you're doing something against it's a cybersecurity threat. I get to yank your internet service, tell service providers to do it. But not the justice minister, my apologies, but the minister of public safety wants to have the power to be able to order core providers to censor people as he sees fit, as long as the intelligence commissioner says yes. Yes, sir, you can do that.
Minister of Public Safety, during the French Revolution, it was the Committee for Public Safety that chopped off the heads of thousands of Frenchmen deemed to be, a threat to the regime of the day, right? Safety. So this is just not good. It's been a general trend in recent decades is to concentrate more and more power in the hands of cabinet ministers through regulations. And very often that amounts to or results in more power for senior bureaucrats because they know the law better than, ministers who come and go, right? But no, ministerial orders, that seems to be the trend under this current government. Same thing with the Online Harms Act, which they threatened to reintroduce. The Online Harm Act that was C-63 that died with the election in April 2025, that Online Harms Act would give the federal cabinet power to create censorship regulations over the internet, right? So there's no parliamentary oversight. There's no input from Parliament. So this is a negative trend in recent decades. You get a bigger and bigger administrative state with more and more regulations, and then you get this impersonal bureaucracy that is enforcing thousands and thousands of regulations. I think we need to move away from that. We need to have fewer regulations.
100%.
How do you explain this in a legal sense? A minister, or ministers in this case, because now we have two different ministers that want this through Bill C-8 and now Bill C-22. How can you explain any minister that wants to be able to force private companies? And by the way, guys, service providers, I keep on saying telecommunications, but that is incorrect. If you look at the definition, there's lawyers that explained what this could cover. We're talking ChatGPT, we're talking Gemini, we're talking Claude, we're talking your TELUS, your Rogers, your Videotron. We're talking anything that provides an electronic service. That could be your TV provider. That could be the camera that's installed and the microphone that's installed. I saw Roombas actual vacuums with cameras in them and microphones. That's the new technology that they have now, because they need to be able to see around them and map your house in 3D, because those things are flying all over the place. But hey, this is what service providers have become, core service providers. When can you imagine, can you think of one single time ministers should have that type of power to be able to say, not only do I want to force a third party to do this, but I don't want them to talk about it?
Well, that's, as you said, we've got that in C8, where the minister can kick somebody off the internet and impose conditions that that person is not allowed to speak about it publicly. So
that's crazy, because that kind of sounds like we had someone on last week who had their bank account froze. And
Eric Cornell, you guys defended him, actually.
Cornell, yeah, he's one of the Justice Center provided lawyers to him and other Canadians. Yep. Which resulted in we got that Emergencies Act court ruling, favorable ruling for our side against the government. So yeah, Mr. Cornell.
Yeah, that was a great episode,
guy.
But
great guy.
He was describing when he was in court, and he said the general attitude of the judge was, because the judge was like, okay, so how long were you kicked out of your bank accounts for? And they were like, well, it depends. Eric specifically, who said it was about a week. Some were longer, but he was about a week.
Eddie, by the way, sorry to correct you.
Yeah. And the judge was like, oh, okay, a week. You know, his whole tone was like, it's not that big a deal. And then, of course, Eddie's lawyer kind of walked him through. You know what that means? It means you can't eat, you can't buy gasoline, your bills. You might have a bill that's due. You can't go out and pay it. And then the judge kind of like, oh yeah, okay, I can see why that's a problem. This kind of strikes me as the same feel. Like, you could see them kicking someone off the internet and be like, oh, what's the problem? It's just the internet. But how could you survive without access to the internet? Forget trying to get a job, right? Like, you're gonna have to, you go to the library and ask the homeless guy if he can look up jobs for you. You know what I mean? You're not going to be able to check your online banking. You're not going to be able to plan a trip, look up a phone number. You need a phone book to find it, but they don't have phone books anymore because everyone uses the internet. So, like, that would be almost a professional, social, cultural death sentence, you know, to kick someone off the internet. That's not, and you can imagine them just act like, oh, it's no big deal. Well, it's not like we charged them; we just kicked them off the internet.
Yeah, it's easy to trivialize and minimize somebody else's misfortune if you haven't gone through it yourself, and it's horrific to suddenly you can't use your credit cards either. That's usually a part of it. That's what happened to the people whose accounts were frozen, and they had to borrow cash from friends to try to buy groceries. I had to suddenly switch into cash. Using cash is fine if you're choosing to do it, right? But when it's suddenly thrust upon you, it's a hardship.
Yeah.
It's like the suddenly forcing millions of Canadian parents to start homeschooling their kids with the declaration of lockdowns. I'm a huge fan of homeschooling. I think it's a really good option, and it should be supported, and very often produces superior results from horror stories I hear all the time about what's going on in the taxpayer funded in all the public schools. But then with lockdown, so homeschooling's good, but if you suddenly get forced into it, right, without your prior consent, without warning, it's extremely disruptive. And it's the same thing with your bank account frozen. If you're choosing to always use cash, and if you can see it coming, you could be okay. You take out a whole bunch of cash and then you have a frozen account for a week. It doesn't matter because you were planning for it and you like to use cash. But this is not the reality. So it is. The great thing though is this judge still ruled that the Trudeau cabinet acted illegally, even though the judge, it was obvious from his ruling when I was reading it, he really disliked Tamara Leach and Chris Barber and Freedom Convoy. He thought Diagolon was a serious terrorist organization. He doesn't understand it's an internet joke. But whatever, he ruled against the Trudeau government.
Yeah. Nice.
The last part of this that I wanted to touch on, it'll take a couple of minutes because I don't know that you have much to say about this, but we had the mass surveillance state by installing all that equipment, as you brought up. Then we have the gag orders, ministerial orders. But the other part that I don't see a lot of people talking about is same portion, part 2 of that bill, section 2, international cooperation framework. So they're basically opening up the door to have to share information with foreign entities. And they call it, if you guys are interested, it's on page 16, section 487.0181, transmission data or subscriber information when it comes to international demands. And the reason why this part is very interesting, but it is not mentioned in the bill, you have to research it and understand what you're looking for, is that they are looking to provide information to outside entities, as in foreign entities, international entities. But one thing that most people don't know is that the Canadian government signed the 2AP agreement, which is called the second additional protocol to the Budapest Convention 2AP, which allows, it's supposed to be an international treaty on cybercrime, which Canada has signed. And one of their new addition is to dramatically expand how fast and how broadly law enforcement agencies from different countries deal with each other. And if you look at Bill C-22, as you mentioned, that equipment that would be installed would have that information. Basically, that information is stored until you need it. You don't need a warrant to collect the information. You're going to need a warrant to consult the information, because the information technically is already gathered, because you're not spying on one person. You're forcing the service providers to spy on all those people. And that was the point that you were making at the beginning. Look at bills. Are they going after one person, or are they going after 99.99% of the people as well? And the main concern that they're saying about 2AP is that they take an example of the FBI. Let's say that the FBI needs information about a Canadian or somebody that's in Canada. They would have to put a request in order to get that information. But that 2AP is allowing forces like the FBI to go talk to the service provider directly. They do not need to go through the government anymore. They could literally go to TELUS, to Rogers, to maybe ChatGPT in the US to say, hey, give me your information about a Canadian guy in Canada, because we see he might be committing crimes. And there's also something else that it opens the door for. It's called the Cloud Act, the Clarifying Lawful Overseas Use of Data Act, which falls under very, very similar grounds, which was in an American law passed in 2018 that allows U.S. law enforcement to compel American tech companies, the Google, the Metas, the Apple, the Microsoft, of giving information to them. And that would now apply to Canadians if Bill C-22 is passed the way that it is now, because it encourages international work. It is insane. I would love to have a lawyer that has my background, but that understands law on top of it. Like somebody that specializes in telecommunications, that understands what I'm talking about, but understands the legality, because I don't. That's why you're always on the show. But I understand what they're talking about. But this is very problematic, because just so you guys know, guess who signed those agreements too? The UK, Australia. Just saying. Look at what's going on in the UK and in Australia. The UK has said that they tried to go after Americans. The UK, they put some requests in the US to get some people that supposedly committed hate crimes in the UK, as in over the internet, and they wanted to give them extradited. It's not going to happen under current law in the US, but this is the type of stuff that opens the door to be able to extradite people for committing crimes, cyber crimes, hate crimes over the internet in a country that you don't even live in.
Did you see the video recently? It's come out in the past week. The police knocking on the door of a woman in Toronto to threaten her over
she was on the show
internet
yesterday.
post.
She was on the show yesterday.
Did she ever find out what the post was that the police were upset about?
Well, you know, she was on the show. Rob's going to be happy about this because he wasn't here yesterday, but her internet was so bad that we rescheduled. Like, she was lagging so bad I couldn't understand her.
Nice.
So yeah, of course, nice.
So she'll be
She's
back
gonna tomorrow. She'll be back
sweet.
tomorrow
Yeah.
on the show to talk about this, because that was my main question too. What did you say that caused them
They
to
don't
show
tell
up?
them. They didn't
No.
tell him as recently as.
Well, she might have a suspicion. She might have a suspicion over what it might have been. But
I saw a few examples. People obviously went through her past, and some of them were pretty. I don't know. It didn't seem to me like. I guess you could kind of perceive it as a threat. It was something like, you know, we're going to end these guys, or we're going to end Mark Carney, and like. Yeah, I guess you could, if you really squint and want to perceive it as a threat, you can. But, you know, considering the source, it didn't seem to me to be a valid threat worth an actual investigation.
What I saw was the National Post actually made somewhat of an article, and I tend to somewhat trust the National Post. They're more centered. They're not leftist. They're not rightist, but they're not leftist. And they were saying something along the lines that she asked for the execution of Trudeau and Carney. Again, this is all speculation. We don't know. But they identified a post where she was saying that something along the lines that they were traitors and they deserved to be hung for treason. And, you know, in all honesty, John, there's guys out there that what they did during COVID should be seen as treason. What a guy like Fauci did in the U.S., that guy committed treason or hate or crimes against humanity. Would I be against him seeing penalties? I wouldn't. I definitely wouldn't. And I don't see that as a threat. You tell me if I'm wrong. If I say that Fauci deserves to be hung for treason or crimes against humanity, does that mean, is it the same thing as me saying I'm going to hang him?
I guess you could make the case that you're asking for due process. You're saying there should be a trial, but you just think that at the end of that trial, there should be a guilty verdict followed by an execution. I mean, that to me could be.
Is that a threat?
I don't know.
John, is that a threat?
I think a criminal code threat is more direct and more specific. If somebody says, for example, you know, we should watch Carney's every move, and you know, he deserves to die because he's so terrible, and so we should be on the lookout. You know, if Carney ever comes to Toronto, we should have snipers there to try to kill him.
Yeah,
that would be, you know, uttering threats if you threaten to engage in that kind of conduct. But if you're saying that somebody, you know, has committed crimes against humanity, okay, and that they deserve to be locked up in prison or executed because they have, you know, what they've done has been horrible, that's not a threat to, you know, shoot somebody, right? So that's very different. So I don't know what the lady said. You know, it's like my mother once got banned from Twitter because she said that somebody should blow up the headquarters of the World Health Organization. Yeah, it was my mother said that on Twitter, and she got banned. That's not a serious threat, right? She's saying the World Health Organization is so evil and corrupt that it ought to be. You know, that somebody would do the world a favor if they blew it up. That's not a serious threat to be actually planning to, you know, collaborate with people to plan to bomb, you know, this sort of thing. So the political rhetoric is excluded typically from the criminal uttering threats.
I think she said your day's coming.
Pretty cool, though.
She said his day will come. Mark Carney's day will come is what she said.
But that could mean a million different things.
You could say his day will come, that he'll lose election. He'll lose an election. His day will come. I mean, you could make that argument.
That's political rhetoric. That's political rhetoric. You know, his day, even to say, you know, that so and so ought to die because of blah blah blah, whatever, right? Like that's an emotional statement. It's not seriously planning to kill somebody.
Well, because you could say they ought to die, but I don't think they should be murdered. You know, in a perfect world, maybe they would be, but I don't think they should be, or something. Like there's enough wiggle room. I think you should be able to get out of that. Like, it certainly should not be a criminal speech.
Well, not only that, but does that mean that me saying that pedophiles deserve the death sentence is a threat against all pedophiles? No. Is that because no? But that's the line we're talking about now, right? Yeah. If saying that Mark Carney deserves justice, whatever justice is, for what he's done, and Trudeau deserves it too. If that is a threat, that means me saying that pedophiles deserve the death penalty is also a threat to all the pedophiles out there.
Yeah, and it's not a criminal uttering threats. There's a case about 30 years ago. Somebody made so Mike Harris had been elected Premier of Ontario. He was cutting government spending. He made some cuts to different social services, welfare programs, whatever. And there was somebody, you know, made this comment, you know, well, Mike Harris is evil. He should die. I wish that somebody would kill him. And there were criminal charges. I think, I don't remember what the comment was, but there was an acquittal because it was too generalized, right? This guy was not seriously talking about killing the Premier of Ontario or making plans, but he was making a general, you know, unwise, poor choice of words, right? But that was still political rhetoric. It was not criminal.
Yes.
So I wish you guys a great show tomorrow with this lady. It'll be interesting to see what the comments are. That would be.
She's a dynamo. Like she was ready for that
video. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. She was ready for those cops.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, tomorrow we'll talk to her. Her name's Nicole. So we'll talk to her tomorrow. Oh, that's funny. It's actually funny. Hey, John, we tend to always go over with you guys. With you. So I want to thank you once again for being here. By the way, I enjoyed our little debate last time. I actually enjoyed
you too
getting pushed. I really enjoy. It's not that I'm looking to debate you, but I was very happy that it happens. I like pushback towards me, and I like pushing back on what people say too. I really enjoyed it. So thanks again for being here. Thanks for doing what you do, and we'll have you back on soon enough.
All kinds. Always a pleasure, John.
Okay, thanks for having me on your show. Have a great rest of the night. Talk to you again.
You too.
Bye for now.
Bye, John.
Appreciate you, sir.
So
we got our sponsor. Yeah, we got our sponsor done.
I did it. Where you can pin her.
Let's
pin that thing.
Yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed that chat with John. I think everyone likes it when John shows up. Always a good chat. Guys, if you're just tuning into the show for the first time and you want to support us, please consider becoming a member. You can do that through YouTube for the low price of $2.99 per month. You can also buy us a coffee normally. Normally, it's in our upper left-hand part of the screen. You won't see it right now. But if we can get that up there it is. That's how you can out support the show. And, of course, just keep coming back. Throw those comments in there. And that is another way. And also like and share the stream. Probably should have reminded you guys that half hour ago. But if you're still here, why not do it now?
Before you close it off, though, tomorrow 7 we are joined by the woman that was visited by police. She's going to join us to talk about what actually happened. Her name
that would be great.
Is Nicole Miskey. So Nicole Miskey's joining us tomorrow 7. She'll be there for about 15 minutes because at 7:30 we are joined by independent journalists Mocha Bazirgan and Chris Joseph, the father of one of the victim of the Humboldt Bronco bus killing. And this is going to be an interesting one. I hope we don't get in trouble for that one, but we might, because Mocha Bazirgan, if you guys don't know who he is, go check him out on X. He has a good following and he's solid. but he talks a lot against I'm not going to ruin it, but he's going to talk about the people that are behind the killer, because supposedly that he was supported.
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
So,
that would be great.
So the people behind the scene, we're going to be talking about that tomorrow. And then on Thursday, we are joined by the man that took a walk in the woods in Nova Scotia a few months back, Jeff Evely, because this case is currently in front of the court. So he will join us to speak about it. And once again, that's another guy that's being represented by the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. We have John all the time, and we have a lot of their clients, it looks like, on the show too. So yeah, that's and man, that's going to be an interesting one. I forgot. I already booked for Sunday. Sunday, we have a man by the name of Alan Armstrong. He's a pastor that was ticketed for preaching the Bible in a park. So that's going to make for a very, very interesting conversation. A buddy of mine sent me that guy, reached out, and he's going to be on the show on Sunday. So yeah, we got some good episodes coming on.
Yep, looks like that's going to be an interesting chat as well. All right, folks, have a great rest of your night. We will catch you tomorrow. Peace.
Peace.